In 1314, the King of England banned football. Not because it was boring, because it was killing people. Bones shattered. Crowds rioted. Entire towns turned into battlegrounds over a single leather ball. Yet this brutal game would become one of the world's biggest sports. But how did a medieval blood sport survive, and eventually split into two different games? Today, we'll uncover the forgotten origin of football and the shocking event that changed it forever. Picture a small English village in the year 1170. Mud coats every street. Smoke rises from thatched roofs. Church bells ring out across cold morning air. On feast days, something strange happens. Hundreds of men gather in the village square. Someone kicks an inflated pig's bladder into the crowd. Chaos erupts instantly. Men from one side of town chase men from the other. The goal is simple and brutal. Drag the ball to the opposing church by any means necessary. There is no ball made of rubber. There is no stadium, no scoreboard, no whistle. Just a bladder of air, wrapped in leather, kicked through mud and blood. Punching is allowed. Kicking a man's shins is expected. There are no referees. There are no boundaries. The game can stretch across entire towns, through rivers, fields, and marketplaces. Shopkeepers board up their windows in fear. Elderly villagers hide indoors and lock their doors. A young mother pulls her children away from the road. Injuries pile up fast. Broken fingers. Cracked ribs. Sometimes, a man never gets back up. Chroniclers of the time described the game with genuine horror. One historian in 1174 called it a game of great uproar and vile confusion. Physicians of the era had no real way to treat broken limbs or internal bleeding. A serious injury on the field often meant a slow, painful death at home. There were no hospitals nearby. There were no painkillers beyond ale and prayer. Despite all this, villagers returned to the field year after year, drawn back by something deeper than fear. For one single day, a farmhand could stand shoulder to shoulder with a blacksmith, both equal on the field. That sense of belonging was worth every bruise. King Edward II was so alarmed that he outlawed the sport in London in 1314. He feared it was distracting men from archery practice, a skill England desperately needed for war. Kings after him tried the same thing, again and again, for over 300 years. Edward III banned it in 1349. Richard II banned it again in 1389. Yet no royal decree could kill it. Villagers played anyway, in secret, in fields far from the king's watchful eye. This wasn't a polished sport. It was raw human instinct, dressed in mud and blood. And somehow, buried inside this chaos, the seed of modern football was already planted. Fast forward to the 1820s, inside the walls of Rugby School in Warwickshire, England. Wealthy boys attended this elite institution to become future gentlemen. Between lessons, they played a rough schoolyard version of football on the close, a wide grassy field beside the school. The rules were murky and constantly disputed. Some boys wanted to kick the ball only. Others wanted to carry it in their arms. Arguments broke out on nearly every play. A single match could last for hours, with no clear winner and no clear rules. Teachers watched from a distance, unwilling to intervene in the boys' rough games. Grass turned to mud by the second half of nearly every match. Then, according to school legend, everything changed in 1823. A student named William Webb Ellis stood on the field, ball in hand. He was 16 years old, the son of an army officer who had died years earlier in battle. The story claims he simply grew tired of the rules. Instead of kicking the ball, he tucked it under his arm and ran straight toward the other team's goal. Stunned boys stood frozen in place. Some shouted in protest. Others laughed in disbelief. Historians today debate whether this moment truly happened exactly this way. No written record from 1823 confirms it. The tale wasn't documented until decades later, in 1876, for years after Webb Ellis had already died. A former rugby student named Matthew Bloxham first wrote the story down, based only on rumors he remembered from his school days. Bloxham himself never even attended the school during Webb Ellis's time there. He simply repeated a story he had heard secondhand, decades after the fact. Yet whether myth or memory, something real was shifting inside English schools. Boys wanted more freedom, more speed, more physical drama on the field. By the 1840s, rugby school had formalized this running style into its own version of football. Meanwhile, other schools across England still preferred a kicking-only game. Eton, Harrow, and Winchester each developed their own separate sets of rules. The two styles grew further apart with each passing year. Former students carried their preferred version into universities, clubs, and workplaces across the country. Confusion spread nationwide. A match between two towns could collapse into arguments before it even began, because nobody agreed on the same rules. One team expected to kick only. The other team expected to run and tackle freely. Fistfights sometimes broke out before a single goal was even scored. Newspapers in the 1850s openly mocked the sport for its lack of consistency. Something had to change. In October 1863, representatives from 11 London football clubs crowded into a small room inside the Freemasons' Tavern. Cigar smoke filled the air. Papers covered a long wooden table. For weeks, they debated one burning question. Should players be allowed to carry the ball, or only kick it? Tempers flared with every meeting. One representative, F.W. Campbell of the Blackheath Club, insisted that running with the ball and violently tackling opponents were essential to the game's spirit. He argued that without hacking, meaning kicking an opponent's shins, the sport would lose its courage and toughness. Other representatives shook their heads in disbelief. They wanted a safer game, one that gentlemen and schoolboys alike could play without broken bones. The majority disagreed completely. On December 8, 1863, Campbell's club walked out of the meeting and refused to sign the new rulebook. The door shut behind them. That single walkout split football forever into two separate paths. The clubs who stayed created the Football Association that same winter, banning carrying the ball entirely. This decision gave birth to what most of the world now calls soccer. The clubs who left eventually formed their own separate governing body, built entirely around running and tackling. That sport became rugby football. Neither side realized it yet, but they had just created two of the most popular games on earth, born from a single argument in a smoky London tavern. Word of these new rules crossed the Atlantic Ocean within a few short years, carried by letters, newspapers, and traveling students. And an ocean away, in America, students were about to take this idea and transform it into something even more explosive. By the 1870s, American college students had discovered English football, and they couldn't agree on which version to play either. In 1869, Rutgers and Princeton played what's often called America's first intercollegiate football match, using a kicking-heavy soccer-style game. The final score was 6-4, in front of a small crowd of curious students. Just a few years later, Harvard preferred the rougher rugby style, with running and tackling. The two approaches collided immediately. In 1876, representatives from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Columbia met at a hotel to create a unified American rulebook. They chose to build on the rugby-style game instead of soccer. This single decision would shape everything that followed for the next century and beyond. One young Yale player soon became the most important man in the sport's history. His name was Walter Camp. Camp wasn't just a player. He was obsessed with structure, strategy, and order. He attended Yale as both a student and a medical student, though football consumed nearly all of his attention. Camp studied every scrum, every collision, and every wasted second on the field. He believed the game needed order the way an army needed formation. He carried a small notebook everywhere, jotting down ideas between classes. Later in life, he would earn the nickname the Father of American Football. In 1880, he introduced a radical idea called the line of scrimmage, replacing rugby's chaotic scrum with an organized starting point for each play. That same year, he reduced teams from 15 players to 11. In 1882, Camp introduced the concept of downs, forcing teams to advance the ball a set distance or give possession to the other side. This single rule transformed football from a sport of endless shoving into a game of strategy, planning, and calculated risk. Coaches began drawing diagrams on chalkboards late into the night. Players began memorizing formations like military commanders. But this new physical version of football came with a brutal cost. By 1905, mass formations like the flying wedge were causing horrific injuries across the country. Players locked arms and charged forward as a single crushing wall of bodies. Spectators watched young men carried off the field on stretchers, week after week. 18 college players died from football-related injuries that year alone. Some universities quietly discussed shutting their programs down for good. Newspapers ran headlines demanding the sport be banned entirely, just as English kings had centuries before. President Theodore Roosevelt personally stepped in, warning college leaders that football needed serious reform or it would be outlawed nationwide. He summoned representatives from Harvard, Yale, and Princeton directly to the White House. In 1906, new rules legalized the forward pass, opening up the game and reducing dangerous pileups on the field. The sport had barely survived its own violence. Football spread rapidly after that, moving beyond college campuses into professional leagues. In 1920, a group of team owners gathered inside a Canton, Ohio automobile showroom and founded the American Professional Football Association. They sat on the fenders and running boards of parked cars because there weren't enough chairs in the room. 2 years later, in 1922, that organization renamed itself the National Football League. For decades, the NFL competed for attention against baseball, the undisputed king of American sports. Then, in 1958, a single overtime championship game between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants captivated television audiences nationwide. Sports historians still call it the greatest game ever played. Millions of American households watched the drama unfold live on their screens for the very first time. That single broadcast proved football was made for television, and everything changed from that moment forward. Today, the sport born from a muddy medieval brawl generates more than $20 billion in annual revenue worldwide. The Super Bowl alone regularly draws over 100 million viewers inside the United States. That's nearly 1 in every 3 Americans watching a single game on a single night. Advertisers now pay over $7 million for a single 30-second commercial during that broadcast. A single team, like the Dallas Cowboys, is now valued at over $9 billion. Youth football leagues now exist in nearly every American town, teaching millions of children the same basic instincts that villagers once used chasing a pig's bladder through muddy streets. Friday nights in small towns across Texas, Ohio, and Georgia still draw entire communities to a single high school field. Parents fill metal bleachers under bright stadium lights, cheering for sons who barely know the sport's true origin. Meanwhile, soccer, football's other descendant, has become the most played sport on the entire planet, with over 4 billion fans worldwide. A child kicking a ball through a dusty street in Brazil shares a hidden ancestry with a quarterback throwing a pass in Kansas City. Both games trace back to the exact same muddy medieval field. Neither child knows it, but they are playing distant cousins of the same forgotten sport. That connection stretches across 8 centuries, dozens of countries, and billions of players. Think about that for a moment. One chaotic medieval game, banned by kings for centuries, eventually split into 2 of the most beloved sports in human history. Walter Camp's down system still governs every single NFL play run today, over 140 years later. Even the language survives. Terms like kickoff, field, and tackle all trace directly back to that muddy Victorian tavern argument in 1863. College football stadiums today hold over 100,000 fans on a single Saturday afternoon, larger than entire medieval towns once were. Cities now build entire economies around a single home game. Restaurants fill up hours before kickoff. Parking lots turn into small cities of grills and folding chairs. Every Sunday, in living rooms across America, families gather around televisions the same way medieval villagers once gathered around a churchyard. A grandfather in Ohio and a teenager in Texas feel the exact same rush their ancestors felt 800 years ago. The uniforms changed. The stakes changed. But the primal urge to chase, to fight, and to win never really left us at all. So here's the question. If that London club had never walked out of the tavern in 1863, would football and soccer even exist as separate sports today? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold stories from history. Some games are simply too stubborn to die.